Welcome back to the Freemouse MC YouTube channel, and for me today a real dream is coming true because I'm standing here with a Yamaha TW 125, and I about a year ago made a video with 10 bikes that I want to ride in my life, and this style of bike was in that video. I was talking about the Suzuki Van 125 in that video, but they're so similar, and this is so cool because this kind of motorcycle is first of all in a way the coolest 125 that you can get, and it's a motorcycle that's not defined in its kind. Like, what is this? Is this a trail bike? Is this a beach bike if beach bike is a kind of motorbike? Is this a city bike? Or is it a cruiser? It's kind of in between all these things. From its power output is pretty typical for 125. It has 11 horsepower and 9.7 newton meters of torque, but it's really lightweight. It has a weight of 112 kilos wet, which is basically nothing. However, the engine is not the star of the show here, it's the rest of the package, because you have 160 millimeters of suspension travel in the front and 150 in the rear, and that combined with these enormous tires. And these enormous tires are basically part of the suspension. You have on road most likely the most amount of grip you can ever ask for, with 180 tire in the rear. And it creates a very special look. I saw a lot of these motorcycles when I lived in Paris. They were zooming around town, and the people on them with their jet helmets and so on looked so cool. Typical city bike fashion, we have the top case here on the top because a bike like this in the city is just amazing. So I'm quite tall for a machine like this because this is a perfect bike like for smaller people. And yeah, it has a seat height of 805 millimeters, and that is how that looks on my frame. Most likely looks ridiculous. However, it is still plenty comfortable, and the seat goes all the way here to the front. It's all over the tank. The tank holds 7 liters, and I'm really curious how this does on the road. Driving through the streets of Düsseldorf was just such a fun time with the Yamaha TW 125 because it actually felt quite quick even though it wasn't, and that is because the chassis makes 60 kilometers an hour feel like 100, and that got especially intense when getting onto the Autobahn. But this is not necessarily a bad thing or scary to ride. It's just that some bikes feel a lot quicker than they are, and this is definitely one of them. However, when getting out of the city and hitting some turns a bit quicker, there can be some instability in the steering. That can actually be a bit sketchy when taking the TW 125 onto a curvy road. However, just have a look at these very beautiful instruments that the bike has. Which to me looks very much like from the 1980s, even though it has to be considered the motorcycle is not that old. It has been built from 1999 all the way to 2003. So let's hear from the owner of this motorcycle, Cher. Welcome to the channel again. Like, he helped me out with a few bikes until now, with 2 Hondas, and really nice.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, nice to have you on.
Yeah, good to see you.
One question: what was the motivation for buying this 125 for you?
To get to work, because public transport, I needed nearly 90 minutes, and with a little 125, it took me about a quarter of an hour.
Yeah, and I mean, that's quite a reduction of time. And with this being a really good city bike, I really see why you went with this choice. And however, this is like, I saw this bike a lot in France, a lot in other parts of Europe, but I've never seen one in Germany. And when I found out you had one, I was really surprised. These bikes are pretty rare here, right?
Yes, there's only about 4 on sale in Germany, and they're like out in the sticks.
But they're still like from their price point, because in my opinion this is kind of a classic bike because it's a one-of-a-kind experience of a motorcycle, and still it's relatively price competitive, right? For how much did you get the bike?
The value of the bike is somewhere between 1,500 for a cheap one outside. Winter prices is sort of maybe about 2.5. But this will go up when you come closer to the city.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still relatively easy to work on because, I mean, one cylinder, you can see everything in the bike. You installed yourself a Kickstarter kit, so everything seems to be pretty doable by oneself, right?
Yes, they're very tough, very easy to work on. You could literally, do everything yourself with minor modifications to make it into something usable, which it is, but it's even now better usable.
What a gorgeous bike. Let's continue and get going. The TW 125 feels so charming when riding the motorcycle, which also has to do with how small the bike is. Here's a comparison of how the bike looks next to Cher's beautiful VFR 750, and at the same time this bike is perfectly used with a top case. It's just so perfect to have for the helmet and the jacket and like a laptop for work. It's the perfect bike for touring around the city. However, there's more when it comes to the TW 125. So now out on this little bike, the Yamaha TW 125, and I have to say I'm genuinely surprised. We wanted to test a bit how off-road capable it is. It will have some limitations compared to a proper enduro, but for someone who just wants to do an adventure outside of the city, this is so perfect because already the suspension doesn't need to do a lot of work because the big tires do so much of it, because they're like, you can feel them like suspending you really, really much because they have like 1.5 bar, which is like nothing. And at the same time, I thought with these big tires, this bike could not run out of traction and would basically have built-in traction control off-road with also the 9 to 11 horsepower. Also with the bike being a bit older and stuff. However, I couldn't be further from the truth because I just tried that, and even with some gravel underneath relatively quick, this thing spins the rear tire like crazy, and you can do donuts in a circle, and then when you accelerate out of it, first of all, it's super easy, a child could do it, and then you still have loss of traction for like 10-15 meters. I think with some tweaks, a bit more power, this thing can rip. Like, wow, this is wild. This is also so fun and easy to approach, and yeah, just great. The problem with it is it depends a lot on your location. We now had trouble finding off-road stuff here because we live in Germany, and yeah. And also like legal off-road stuff and so on, you kind of always need to look out. And in other countries, like in cities like Los Angeles or Cape Town, you have stuff where you can go right outside the door. And then you can explore, go places, and get back to the city, and that's what this bike is perfect for. It is so cool. It is like so practical in the city, and then it's like all the adventure and all the cool stuff, and like so much driving fun and so much driving ease like outside of the city. Just phenomenal. Really, really like it. With all the praise, I also have to say some negative things, like for example that the rear drum brake is a bit weak, especially considering that the handling can be a bit sketchy if you drive a bit faster on a curvy road. Apart from that, the bike is really, really fun, and I very much enjoyed my time with the TW 125, and it was really, really cool to, in a way, have a dream come true to be able to ride this cute little bike, to be honest. What a great experience. If you really like this video and have a motorcycle or a car that you would like me to make a video on, then I'm genuinely really thankful for that kind of support, because it keeps the channel going, and the email is down in the description. And I also have a car channel for you to check out, where there's also going to be videos on cars. And yeah, definitely like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next video.